Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the UES Horizon. Through the big window he could see alien ships coming closer. They looked like giant crystals floating in space, shining with their own light. He had never seen anything so beautiful and scary at the same time. "Sir, they're asking permission to come aboard," said his communication officer, a young woman named Carol Davis. Her voice was a little shaky. Nobody on the ship had ever met real aliens before. Jake nodded. "Tell them yes, and make sure Ambassador Grant is ready." Lisa Grant was checking her uniform for the 10th time. She was the best diplomat Earth had, but she felt nervous. Today was the day humans would meet their first alien race. Everything had to go perfectly. The aliens called themselves the Kythera. They had been flying between stars for thousands of years while humans were still learning to make fire. Their message to Earth had been polite but cold. They wanted to talk about trade and borders in space. Jake watched as the alien shuttle docked with his ship. He could hear the strange sounds it made, like music mixed with metal scraping. His tactical officer, Ryan Webb, stood next to him with his hand near his weapon. Not because he wanted to fight, but because it was his job to be. "Ready? Remember," Jake said to his crew, "these people have been in space longer than our whole civilization. Be respectful, but don't act scared." The airlock opened with a hiss. 3 tall figures walked into the ship. They were taller than any human, with skin that changed colors like oil on water. They had 4 arms and moved with a grace that made them seem like they were dancing rather than walking. The leader stepped forward. According to their files, this was High Arbiter Zekthul, one of the most important leaders in the Kythera Empire. He wore something that looked like armor made of living metal. "Greetings," he said through a small device that turned his words into English. His voice sounded like wind through caves. "I am Zekthul. We have come to speak with your leaders about your place in the galaxy." Ambassador Grant stepped forward and bowed slightly, the way their cultural experts had taught her. "Welcome aboard the UES Horizon. I am Ambassador Lisa Grant. We are honored by your visit." The meeting took place in the ship's main conference room. Jake sat at one end of the long table while Zekthul sat at the other. The translator box sat between them, humming softly as it changed words from one language to another. "Your species is young," Zekthul began. "You have only just learned to travel between stars. This is interesting." Lisa smiled. "We're eager to learn from more experienced civilizations like yours. We hope we can become friends and trading partners." Thikai. Alien's skin shifted to a darker color. Jake didn't know if that was good or bad. "Trade requires territory," Zekthul said. "Territory requires strength. Your species has shown neither." Ryan Webb felt his jaw tighten. He didn't like the way this alien talked about humans like they were children. "We may be new to space travel," Lisa said carefully, "but we've established colonies on several worlds. We're working on mining operations in the Kepler 442 system and expanding our settlements in the Ross sector." The change in the room was instant. All 3 aliens went very still. Their skin turned a dark red color that reminded Jake of blood. The translator box made a sound like breaking glass. Zekthul stood up slowly. When he spoke, his voice was different, colder, angry. "You claim territory in Kepler 442? That system belongs to the Kythera Empire. It has been ours for over 800 of your years." Lisa felt her heart sink. "We had no knowledge of any claims on that system. Our surveys showed no signs of occupation or territorial markers." "Ignorance is not an excuse," Zekthul said. His 4 arms moved in what looked like a threatening gesture. "Your species has committed an act of war against the Kythera Empire." Jake stood up. "Now wait just a minute. We're not at war with anybody. This is obviously a misunderstanding. We can work this out." The alien leader looked at Jake like he was looking at an insect. "Captain Morrison, your species does not understand its position. You are prey animals who have learned to use tools. You think this makes you equal to predators like the Kythera." Ryan Webb's hand moved closer to his sidearm. "Maybe you should watch how you talk about humans." Zekthul noticed the movement and made a sound that might have been laughter. "You see, even now you make threats you cannot back up. Your entire species has perhaps 50 ships that could be called warships. The Kithara Empire commands 10,000 vessels of war. Lisa tried to get the meeting back on track. Surely we can find a peaceful solution. We're willing to negotiate about the Kepler system. We never intended to offend your empire. The time for negotiation has passed, Zekthul said. He signaled to his companions, and they began moving toward the door. Your species has declared war on the apex predators of the cosmos. We accept your declaration. We haven't declared war on anyone, Jake said, following the aliens toward the airlock. Zekthul stopped and turned back. When he spoke, every word was clear and cold. By claiming territory that belongs to the Kithara Empire, you have challenged our dominance. No species has ever done this and survived. We will demonstrate to the galaxy why inferior races bow before us. The aliens left the ship without another word. Jake and his crew watched their crystal ships disappear into hyperspace, leaving behind only the cold light of distant stars. Lisa sank into a chair. What have we done? Ryan checked his weapon systems out of habit. We just made the biggest enemy in the galaxy, apparently. Jake activated the ship's communication system. He needed to send a message to Earth immediately. But as he began recording, he realized he didn't know what to say. How do you tell your entire species that they've accidentally started a war with an empire that has been conquering worlds for thousands of years? This is Captain Morrison of the UES Horizon, he began. Priority 1 message to Earth Command. We have a problem. A very big problem. As the message began its journey to Earth, Jake looked out at the stars and wondered if humans would still be alive to see them in a year's time. The Kithara had made their intentions clear. Humanity had just been marked for extinction by the most powerful force in the galaxy. And the worst part was, they had done it completely by accident. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was working late in her lab on Nexus Prime when everything changed. The research station was home to scientists from 20 different worlds, all working together to study the galaxy's mysteries. Elena was the only human there, but she had never felt different from her alien friends. That changed when her research partner, Quilat, came running into the lab. The small, furry creature looked terrified. His 6 eyes were wide with fear, and his hands were shaking. Elena, you need to leave, Quilat said in his squeaky voice. You need to leave right now. Elena looked up from her computer screen. What are you talking about? Leave where? The station. This sector. Maybe even the galaxy if you can. Quilat's fur was standing on end. Something Elena had never seen before. Your people have done something terrible. Elena felt cold fear in her stomach. What do you mean? Quilat pulled out a small communication device. The screen showed news reports from across the galaxy. Elena could see her home planet, Earth, in many of the pictures. The headlines were in dozens of alien languages, but the translation software made them clear enough. Humans declare war on Kithara Empire. New species commits galactic suicide. The shortest war in history about to begin. Elena read the reports with growing horror. The diplomatic mission to meet the Kithara had gone wrong. Humans had accidentally claimed territory in a system the Kithara considered theirs. Now the most powerful empire in the galaxy was preparing to wipe out humanity. This has to be a mistake, Elena said. Humans don't want war with anyone. Quilat touched her arm gently with one of his small hands. Elena, you don't understand. The Kithara have ruled this part of the galaxy for 2,000 years. They have destroyed entire civilizations. For much smaller insults than this. Around the station, Elena could see other scientists packing their equipment. Many of them looked at her with pity in their alien eyes. Some looked scared, as if being near a human might be dangerous. Dr. Vorth, the station's director, called a meeting. He was a tall, thin creature with gray skin and no hair. He had always been kind to Elena, but now he looked sad. Friends, Vorth said to the assembled scientists, we have received orders from the Galactic Council. All humans are to be evacuated from neutral territory immediately. Elena stood up. Why? We haven't done anything wrong. The Kithara have declared that any world or station that helps humans will be considered an enemy, Vorth explained. We cannot risk the safety of everyone here. Elena felt tears in her eyes. These people had been her friends for 3 years. They had worked together, laughed together, shared meals together. Now they were afraid to even be near her. On Earth, General Marcus Kane was having the worst day of his military career. His office was full of alien ambassadors, all offering the same thing: advice on how to die with dignity. The Benthari ambassador, a creature that looked like a walking tree, had brought detailed files about previous Kithara wars. Kane read them with growing despair. The Zeloni rebellion had lasted 6 days. The Kithara had turned 3 planets into burning rocks. The Harvest War had ended in 12 hours. An entire star system had been evacuated, and the species had never been heard from again. The Crimson Uprising had been over before it started. The rebel leaders had been executed, and their worlds had been turned into Kithara colonies. General Kane, the Benthari ambassador said in his deep, slow voice, "Your species should consider evacuation. There are empty worlds in the outer rim where humans could hide." Kane looked at the alien diplomat. "We're not running away from our home." "Then you are choosing extinction," said the Vortanian ambassador, a floating creature covered in tentacles. "The Kithara war machine has never been defeated. They have ships that can crack planets and weapons that can burn the air off a world." Admiral Patricia Hayes entered the room carrying a thick folder of reports. She had been Earth's top military commander for 10 years, but she had never faced anything like this. "How bad is it?" Kane asked. "Bad," Hayes said simply. "Our best estimates say the Kithara have 3,000 heavy warships. We have 47 ships that could fight in a real battle. Most of those are converted cargo haulers with missile pods strapped to them." The alien ambassadors exchanged looks. Even they were surprised by how hopeless the situation was. "Perhaps," suggested the Kentari ambassador, a being that looked like a large insect. "Humans should surrender immediately. The Kithara sometimes allowed defeated species to exist as slaves." Hayes felt anger rising in her chest. "We don't surrender to anyone." On the planet Sanctuary, a world where refugees from wars went to live in peace, the news about humans was spreading fast. Beings who had survived their own encounters with powerful empires watched the reports with sad recognition. An old Thrakari warrior named Gorthek sat in a refugee camp, telling stories to younglings of various species. He had fought the Kithara 30 years ago when they conquered his homeworld. "The humans don't know what they've done," he said in his gravelly voice. "The Kithara don't just fight wars. They erase species from existence. They take your worlds, your culture, your history. They make it like you never existed." A young Polarian girl asked, "But what if the humans fight really hard?" Gorthek made a sound like bitter laughter. "Child, my people were warriors for 10,000 years. We had weapons that could destroy moons. The Kithara beat us in 2 weeks. These humans, they're barely out of their own solar system. They have nothing that can hurt the Kithara." Back on Earth, President Victoria Stone was addressing the planet's population on every communication channel. She stood behind a podium in the Global Defense Center, trying to look calm while the world fell apart around her. "Citizens of Earth," she began, "we face a challenge unlike any in human history. But we have faced impossible odds before. We have survived ice ages, plagues, wars and disasters. We will survive this too." But even as she spoke, Stone knew the truth. The alien ambassadors had shown them what Kithara ships could do. Weapons that could boil oceans, shields that could stop anything humans could throw at them, armies of soldiers who had been fighting for centuries. In the military command center under the building, officers were working frantically to prepare Earth's defenses. But everyone knew it was hopeless. They were like children with sticks trying to fight tanks. Colonel Pete Johnson was studying star maps, trying to find places where human ships could hide or run, but there was nowhere to go. The Kithara Empire controlled most of known space. "Sir," said Lieutenant Amy Clark, looking up from her computer, "we're getting reports from our colonies. The outer settlements are requesting evacuation ships." Johnson nodded. At least some humans might survive if they scattered to the far edges of space. Maybe in 1,000 years, when the Kethra had forgotten about them, humanity could start. Over Elena Rodriguez packed her few belongings on Nexus Prime. Keelat was helping her, even though other aliens warned him to stay away from humans. "I'm sorry this happened," he said sadly. "Your people seem nice. It's not fair." Elena smiled through her tears. "Thank you for being my friend, Keelat. Maybe someday, if humans survive this, we can work together again." "I hope so," the small alien said. "But Elena, you should know something. The galaxy is going to remember this day, not because humans started a war, but because a new species was brave enough to stand up to the Kethara, even by accident." As Elena's transport ship left the station, she looked back at the place that had been her home. She wondered if she would ever see her alien friends again, or if this was the beginning of the end for humanity. Across the galaxy, the same scene was playing out on thousands of worlds. Humans were being evacuated, warned, or simply abandoned as the galaxy prepared to watch their extinction. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone knew how it would end. The only question was how long humanity would last before the Kethara wiped them from existence forever. Colonel Sam Turner looked at the morning sky above New Geneva and knew death was coming. The farming colony had 8,000 people, mostly families who grew food for the nearby mining stations. They had tractors and harvesting machines, not weapons of war. But Turner was not going to let his people die without a fight. The retired military officer had been living quietly on New Geneva for 2 years, helping run the colony's security. When the news came about the war with the Kethara, most people wanted to evacuate. Turner had different ideas. "We're not running," he told the colony council. "This is our home. If the Kethara want it, they can come and take it." Turner walked through the colony, looking at what they had to work with. The mining equipment could move tons of dirt. The farming machines were built to work in tough conditions. The colonists knew how to fix anything and make tools from scrap metal. "Listen up, people," Turner said at the town meeting. "The Kethara think we're weak because we're new to space. They think we'll give up as soon as they show up. They're wrong." Mary Phillips, the colony's doctor, raised her hand. "Sam, we don't have any real weapons. How can we fight spaceships with farming tools?" Turner smiled. "Mary, my grandfather fought in wars with nothing but his rifle and his brain. My great-grandfather before him fought with even less. We're going to show these aliens what humans do when someone threatens our families." The colonists worked for 3 days without stopping. They used mining explosives to create traps. They turned tractors into armored vehicles. They dug tunnels, connecting every building in the colony. The farming machines became weapons that could throw metal and rocks at incredible speed. When the Kethara ships appeared in the sky, New Geneva looked like a peaceful farming community. But under the ground and hidden in the buildings was a fortress that would have impressed any military engineer. The Kethara ships landed in the main field. Tall, graceful aliens walked out, expecting to find terrified humans ready to surrender. Instead, they found Colonel Turner standing alone in the middle of the colony square. "I am War Commander Veltar of the Kethara Empire," the alien leader announced through his translator. "This world now belongs to the Kethara. Surrender and your deaths will be quick." Turner spat in the dirt. "I'm Colonel Sam Turner, United States Army, retired. This is our world, and if you want it, you're going to have to come and take it." The alien looked confused. In 2,000 years of conquest, no prey species had ever refused to surrender when faced with Kethara might. "You do not understand," Veltar said. "We have ships that can burn your colony from orbit. We have weapons that can kill thousands. You have nothing that can hurt us." Turner smiled. "Then come and get us." The Battle of New Geneva started when the Kethara tried to walk into the colony. The first alien soldier stepped on a hidden mine, made from mining explosives. The blast killed him and 3 others instantly. More explosions followed. Humans appeared from hidden positions, firing weapons they had built from farming tools. The colonists fought like nothing the Kethara had ever seen. When their weapons broke, they grabbed new ones. When they got hurt, they kept fighting. When they ran out of ammunition, they used knives and tools. Lieutenant Nina Foster was in the colony's communications center, listening to Cathara battle reports. She had been a radio operator in the military and knew how to intercept enemy messages. What she heard shocked her. "Request immediate reinforcements," one Cathara commander was saying. "The humans are not behaving like any prey species in our records. They seem to become more dangerous when wounded." "Confirmed," came another voice. "Human defenders are using tactics we do not understand. They attack, then disappear, then attack from a different direction. They show no fear of death." Nina recorded everything and sent it to Earth Command. For the first time since the war started, humans had intelligence about how their enemies thought. On Earth, Dr. Richard Gray was trying to explain to government leaders why the colonists were fighting so well. Gray was a professor who studied how humans had evolved and why they were different from other animals. "Gentlemen," he said to the emergency meeting, "we need to understand what makes humans special. Most intelligent species in the galaxy evolved as herd animals or scavengers. They survived by running away from danger or hiding from predators." General Kane leaned forward. "What does that have to do with the war?" "Everything," Gray said. "Humans evolved differently. We were persistence hunters on a world full of dangerous animals. We survived by chasing our prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We fought saber-toothed tigers and giant bears. We survived ice ages and disasters that would have killed most species." Admiral Hayes was studying reports from New Geneva. "You're saying humans are natural fighters?" "I'm saying humans are natural survivors," Gray explained. "Every human carries the genetic memory of ancestors who refused to give up, no matter how bad things got. When we're threatened, we don't run or surrender. We fight." The battle for New Geneva lasted 3 days. The Cathara had expected to take the colony in 3 hours. Instead, they found themselves in the longest, bloodiest fight in their military history. The humans used everything as weapons. When the Cathara soldiers entered buildings, hidden colonists dropped farming equipment on them from above. When they tried to use their advanced sensors, humans created smoke and noise that confused their instruments. Dr. Martinez, the colony's engineer, had turned the water treatment plant into a chemical weapon factory. When Cathara soldiers tried to secure the water supply, they found pipes filled with industrial acid instead of water. Turner himself led the final defense of the colony center. When his rifle ran out of bullets, he used a hammer. When the hammer broke, he used his bare hands. Even when wounded and outnumbered, he kept fighting. The Cathara finally took New Geneva, but at a cost they had never experienced before. Of the 3,000 Cathara soldiers who landed, only 2,000 walked away. They had lost almost a third of their force taking a single farming colony. War Commander Veltar sent his report to the Cathara High Command with shaking hands. "The humans do not fight like prey animals," he wrote. "They fight like predators, defending their territory. They show no fear and do not surrender even when death is certain." More disturbing reports came from other human colonies. Every world the Cathara attacked put up fierce resistance. Humans used tactics that made no sense to Cathara military doctrine. They sacrificed themselves to save others. They fought harder when things looked hopeless. On the research vessel Deep Thought, Cathara scientists were studying human behavior with growing alarm. Dr. Kelthara, their leading expert on prey species psychology, was writing reports that terrified the military command. "Humans do not behave like any species we have conquered," she wrote. "They appear to be apex predators who have developed intelligence and technology. They do not submit to superior force because they do not recognize the concept of superior force." Captain Morrison, now commanding a small fleet of human ships, received intelligence that changed everything. The reports Nina Foster had intercepted revealed something amazing about their enemies. The Cathara Empire had conquered the galaxy not through superior fighting ability, but through psychological warfare. They were prey animals who had become powerful through technology and numbers. They won wars by making their enemies too afraid to fight. But humans weren't afraid. Humans had evolved on a world where being afraid meant death. They had learned to face danger head-on, to fight when cornered, to never give up. "Sir," said his communications officer, Lieutenant Bob Chen, "we're getting reports from across human space. The Cathera are taking heavy losses on every world they attack. Their casualty rates are 10 times higher than any previous war. Morrison looked at the tactical display showing Cathera fleet movements. For the first time since the war began, those movements looked confused and uncertain. They're not used to fighting predators, Morrison realized. They've spent 2,000 years conquering herbivores and scavengers. They have no idea how to fight a species that evolved to hunt. The realization spread through the human military like wildfire. They weren't fighting a superior enemy. They were fighting an enemy who had never faced anything like them before. The galaxy's apex predators had finally met their match. Commander Alex Mitchell floated in the zero gravity of his converted cargo ship, the Freedom Runner, watching Cathera supply ships through the window. 6 months ago, he had been hauling food between Earth colonies. Now he was hunting the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "Target locked," whispered his weapons officer, Sergeant Lucy Adams. "3 supply ships, lightly defended." Mitchell nodded. "Remember, we hit fast and run faster. Take what we can, destroy what we can't. Carry and get out before their warships show up." The attack lasted less than 10 minutes. The human ships appeared from behind an asteroid, fired everything they had at the surprised Cathera vessels, grabbed whatever supplies they could carry, and vanished into hyperspace before the enemy could respond. It was the 15th successful raid this month. Across human space, dozens of small fleets were doing the same thing. They didn't fight fair battles or try to hold territory. They struck where the enemy was weak, took what they needed, and disappeared. The Cathera military had never faced anything like it. Their entire strategy was built around big battles between large fleets. They didn't know how to fight an enemy that refused to stay and fight. On the bridge of the Cathera flagship Eternal Glory, High Admiral Yel Noth stared at reports that made no sense to him. Human forces had somehow captured 3 intact Cathera warships. Worse, they were using those ships to attack other Cathera vessels. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his intelligence officer. "Our ships have security systems that should prevent any alien from operating them." "Sir," the intelligence officer replied nervously, "the humans appear to be modifying our technology. They are changing it in ways we did not think possible." On the hidden moon base of Luna, engineer Kate Williams was doing exactly that. Her team had been working day and night to understand Cathera technology. What they found surprised everyone. "It's amazing," Kate explained to Admiral Hayes during a secure video call. "The Cathera built all their weapons and shields to fight other prey species. Everything they have is designed to work against enemies who fight in predictable ways." "What does that mean for us?" Hayes asked. Kate smiled. "It means their technology has weaknesses they don't even know about. Their shields work great against steady, constant attacks, but if you hit them with random, chaotic patterns, they fall apart. Their weapons are incredibly accurate against targets moving in straight lines, but they can't track something that moves unpredictably." Williams showed Hayes a captured Cathera rifle. "Look at this. It's more advanced than anything we have, but it's designed for soldiers who stand in formation and shoot at enemies who also stand in formation. It's useless in the kind of close combat fighting humans prefer." The implications were staggering. The Cathera had built their entire military around fighting other civilized prey species. They had never had to account for the creative, chaotic, seemingly insane tactics that humans use naturally. Captain Morrison, now Admiral Morrison, was planning the attack that would change the war. Intelligence reports showed a massive Cathera fleet gathering at Kepler Station. It was 3 times the size of any human fleet. But Morrison had learned that size wasn't everything. "Listen up," he told his ship captains during the briefing. "The Cathera expect us to either run away or attack them head-on. We're going to do neither." The plan was crazy by any normal military standard. Human ships would approach the Cathera fleet from 6 different directions, attack randomly, retreat when the enemy responded, then attack again from somewhere else. They would use captured Cathera weapons against Cathera shields, exploit every weakness Kate Williams had discovered. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, something even more surprising was happening. Alien species that had been conquered by the Cathera centuries ago were starting to rebel. On the planet Thalos, the local Benthari population rose up against their Cathera rulers. They had watched humans fight impossible odds and realized that maybe the Kythera weren't as invincible as everyone thought. The rebellion spread to a dozen worlds, then 50, then 100. Species that had been slaves for generations suddenly remembered what freedom felt like. They all wanted the same thing. They wanted the terrifying humans on their side. The Zaloni, who had been defeated by the Kythera 30 years ago, sent a secret message to Earth. "We offer our ships and soldiers to fight alongside humanity," their message said. "You have shown us that the Kythera can bleed." General Kane found himself in the strange position of being asked for protection by the same alien species who had been warning humans to run away just months earlier. "Sir," reported Colonel Johnson, "we have requests for military assistance from 47 different worlds. They all want human troops to help them fight the Kythera." Kane shook his head in amazement. 6 months ago, they thought we were going to be extinct in a week. Now they want us to save them. The Battle of Kepler Station began exactly as Admiral Morrison planned. The Kythera fleet was arranged in their traditional formation, expecting either a direct assault or a fighting retreat from the approaching human vessels. Instead, human ships appeared from everywhere at once. They attacked from above and below, from the sides and from behind. They used weapons that fired in random patterns, shields that changed frequency every few seconds, and tactics that seemed to have no logic at all. The Kythera commanders tried to respond with their standard battle plans, but nothing worked. Every time they moved to counter one human attack, 3 more appeared from different directions. Commander Mitchell led his small squadron directly through the center of the Kythera formation, firing at everything in sight. When Kythera ships tried to target him, he would suddenly change direction in ways that their computers couldn't predict. "This is insane," shouted his pilot, Lieutenant Dave Wilson, as they barely avoided collision with a Kythera cruiser. "Exactly," Mitchell replied. "They can't fight what they can't understand." The battle lasted 8 hours. When it was over, the Kythera fleet was destroyed. Of the 300 Kythera warships that had gathered at Kepler Station, only 12 escaped to report the disaster. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the wreckage of the enemy fleet. His own losses had been minimal. The Kythera had been so confused by human tactics that most of their shots had missed completely. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we're receiving surrender requests from Kythera forces throughout the sector. They're asking for terms." Morrison couldn't believe it. The most powerful empire in the galaxy was asking for mercy from a species they had planned to exterminate. On Earth, President Stone addressed the global population with news that seemed impossible. "Citizens of Earth, I am pleased to announce that Kythera forces in 6 star systems have laid down their arms. They are requesting peace negotiations." Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who had returned from her exile to help with alien relations, watched the president's speech from her office. Her alien friend Quilat was with her, having requested assignment to Earth to help with the peace process. "I don't understand," Quilat said, his 6 eyes wide with confusion. "How did humans defeat the Kythera so quickly?" "Everyone said it was impossible," Elena smiled. "Maybe that's the point, Quilat. Humans have never been very good at accepting what's impossible." The news spread across the galaxy at light speed. The species that everyone had expected to be extinct within weeks had not only survived, but had defeated the Kythera Empire in open battle. On refugee worlds, in slave colonies, in the darkest corners of Kythera space, beings who had given up, hope began to believe again. The humans had done the impossible. They had proven that the Kythera could be beaten, and suddenly the galaxy didn't look like such a dark place anymore. Admiral Morrison received a message from Kythera High Command requesting a meeting to discuss terms of surrender. He read it twice to make sure he wasn't dreaming. "Sir," asked his aide, "what should we tell them?" Morrison thought about all the humans who had died defending their colonies, about the aliens who had suffered under Kythera rule for centuries, about the future his species could build. "Tell them we'll talk," he said finally, "but we talk as equals, not as conquerors. It's time to build something better than an empire." The tide had turned. The galaxy's apex predators had met their match, and the universe would never be the same. High Arbiter Zekthul walked slowly into the meeting room on Harmony Point Station. 1 year ago, he had been the proud representative of the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Today, he was here to surrender to a species he had once called inferior animals. Ambassador Lisa Grant watched him enter. She remembered their first meeting on the UES horizon when everything had gone so wrong. Now she sat at the negotiating table as the representative of the Terran Federation, with delegates from dozens of alien species watching. "High Arbiter," Lisa said politely, as Zekthul took his seat. "Thank you for coming." Zekthul's skin had lost its bright colors. He looked tired and old. "Ambassador Grant, I am here to discuss the terms of our surrender." Around the room, alien delegates whispered to each other in dozens of languages. Many of them had been slaves of the Cathara Empire just months ago. Now they were free beings, invited to help create a new government for the galaxy. General Kane sat beside Lisa, studying the Cathara leader. "We're not here to accept your surrender," he said quietly. "We're here to talk about building something better." Zekthul looked confused. "I do not understand. You have defeated us. You have the right to rule as conquerors." Lisa shook her head. "That's not how humans do things. We didn't fight this war to become the new empire. We fought to make sure no one could be an empire ever again." Dr. Elena Rodriguez was serving as a cultural advisor, helping translate human ideas into concepts the various alien species could understand. It was harder than she had expected. Most galactic civilizations couldn't imagine voluntary cooperation between different species. The humans want to create something called a galactic council, Elena explained to a group of confused alien delegates during a break. "Every species gets a vote regardless of how strong their military is or how advanced their technology is." A Benthari representative raised one of his branch-like arms. "But who decides what the galaxy does? Who has the power to enforce decisions?" "Everyone," Elena said, "and no one. Decisions are made by voting. They're enforced because everyone agrees to follow them." The concept was so foreign to galactic thinking that it required entirely new diplomatic protocols. Most alien species understood only two types of relationships: ruler and ruled. The idea that equals could work together was revolutionary. President Victoria Stone arrived on Harmony Point 3 days into the negotiations. She had come to address the assembled galactic community, to explain humanity's vision for the future. "Representatives of the galaxy," she began, standing before an audience of beings from 100 different worlds. "We stand at a crossroads. We can choose to repeat the old patterns of conquest and domination, or we can choose to build something new." In the audience, Kilat listened with his translator device. His 6 eyes were wide with wonder as he heard words that no galactic leader had ever spoken before. "Humans do not seek to rule you," Stone continued. "We seek to protect you. This galaxy is big enough for everyone, but only if we choose cooperation over conquest." The Kithra delegation sat in stunned silence. They had expected to be destroyed or enslaved. Instead, humans were offering them a place in a new government as equal partners. Admiral Morrison watched the proceedings from the observation deck of the newly commissioned UES Unity. The ship was unlike anything ever built before. Its crew included humans, Benthari, Zeloni, reformed Cathara, and dozens of other species all working together. "It's working," said his aide, Lieutenant Amy Clark. "The joint training exercises are going better than anyone expected." Morrison nodded. "Turns out most species get along fine when they're not being forced to fight each other." The treaty negotiations took 2 weeks. The document that emerged was unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of a surrender agreement, it was a founding charter for a new type of civilization. The Galactic Council would have representatives from every known species. Decisions would be made by majority vote, with special protections for minority species. No single species could dominate the others. Most importantly, the Council would be protected by a joint defense force. Ships and soldiers from all member species would work together to prevent any future attempts at galactic conquest. The Kythera Empire was dissolved. Its military technology was shared freely among all species for defense purposes only. Kythera worlds became independent members of the new council. Dr. Richard Gray, the human evolution expert, was invited to speak to the assembled delegates about why humans had been so successful in the war. "We won because we're different," he explained. "Humans evolved as predators, but we're predators with a conscience. We're strong enough to dominate, but we choose to protect instead." The signing ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Beings who had lived their entire lives under the rule of empires watched as their representatives signed a document that promised equality and freedom for all. Zekthul was among the signers. As he added his name to the treaty, he spoke to the watching galaxy. "The Kythera Empire ruled through fear for 2,000 years, he said. "Today, we choose to be part of something ruled by hope instead." 6 months later, the first joint mission of the Galactic Defense Force launched from Unity Station. Admiral Morrison commanded a fleet that included ships from 20 different worlds, all working together to stop a group of pirates who had been raiding Outer Rim colonies. The mission was successful, but more importantly, it proved that the new system worked. Species that had been enemies for centuries fought side by side to protect innocent beings. Elena Rodriguez returned to her research on Nexus Prime, but now she wasn't the only human there. Scientists from dozens of species worked together, sharing knowledge and discoveries that would benefit everyone. Quilat was her research partner again, but now they were joined by a reformed Kythera scientist named Velkara. The three beings, who would have been impossible allies just a year ago, were working together to unlock the secrets of the universe. "I still don't understand," Quilat said during one of their research sessions. "Why did humans choose cooperation over conquest? You were strong enough to rule the galaxy." Elena smiled as she looked out at the stars. "Because ruling people isn't the same as leading them. And ruling through fear isn't the same as earning respect." Velkara, the former Kythera warrior, added her own thoughts. "My people ruled for 2,000 years, but we were never safe. We always had to watch for rebellion, for resistance. Humans have shown us that true strength comes from making others want to follow you." Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to Admiral and serving as the human representative to the Galactic Council, often stood on the observation deck of Unity Station and watched ships from dozens of worlds coming and going in peace. The galaxy had been transformed. Instead of one empire ruling over conquered slaves, there were hundreds of free worlds working together. Trade flourished. Art and science advanced faster than ever before. Conflicts were resolved through negotiation instead of war. But Morrison knew that humanity's greatest contribution wasn't military victory. It was the simple idea that strength should be used to protect, not to dominate. Children of dozens of species now grew up in a galaxy where they could travel freely, where they could pursue their dreams without fear, where they could look up at the stars and see endless possibilities instead of endless threats. The humans had accidentally declared war on the apex predators of the cosmos. In winning that war, they had become something the galaxy had never seen before. Protectors who protected by choice, not by force. And the universe was a better place because of it. The end of the old age of empires had begun with a simple diplomatic mistake. The beginning of the new age of cooperation had begun with an even simpler choice: the decision to be strong enough to be gentle and powerful enough to be kind. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy not as conquerors, but as guardians. And that made all the difference.